Welcome to PBS 39's Scholastic Scrimmage. Scholastic Scrimmage is brought to you by the members of PBS 39 and by
Scholastic Scrimmage is sponsored by St. Luke's University Health Network, the region's leading provider of medical education. For more than 100 years, St. Luke's has been dedicated to educating physicians, nurses, and healthcare professionals. To learn more, call St. Luke's InfoLink, toll free at 866 St. Luke's, or visit sluhn.org.
Support for PBS 39's educational programming is provided by the Deluxe Corporation Foundation, proud to support quality programming on PBS 39.
scholarships provided by the Air Products Foundation. And now, here's your host, Joe Pacetti.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Pacetti, and welcome to Scholastic Scrimmage on PBS 39. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in one of his chats with the American public, counseled that competition has been shown to be useful up to a certain point and no further, but cooperation, which is the thing we must strive for today, begins where competition leaves off. This show has been a scion of this type of competition that culminates in collaborative efforts to push contestants forward in their pursuit of lofty academic goals. But cooperation, the true key to success, not only ensures victory in the academic quiz show, it also establishes and protects the very foundations that our society is predicated on: unity, reason, critical thought, and democratic principles. Enough waxing poetic, though. These two teams have shown their mettle in the past, and there's no doubt that they will today. Let's welcome the Notre Dame High School Crusaders and the Emmaus High School Green Hornets to the stage by meeting the players and coaches. And we'll begin with Notre Dame.
I'm Alexander Bellarmino, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Ben Gormley, and I'm a junior.
I'm Braden Farrell, and I'm a junior.
I'm Jacob Schaefer, and I'm a junior.
Notre Dame's coach is Dina Farrell. And now the team from Emmaus.
I'm Louis Mortimer, and I'm a senior.
I'm Milan Patel, and I'm a senior.
I'm Alex Comfort, and I'm a senior.
I'm Ben Braun, and I'm a senior.
Emmaus' coaches are Deb Barthold and Brent Ohl. The judges for today's contest are Sally Campbell, Gary DeLeo, and Kathleen Steele. To our audience, this contest requires rapid recall of facts and favors the resolute. Performances on this stage are not necessarily reflective of these students' academic experiences. At the end of the season, the two final teams will win scholarships for their schools from the Air Products Foundation. And remember, it's always easier to be an armchair quizmaster than a competitor in this arena. We understand the rules, so let's begin the contest with a toss-up. There's a visual on the monitor for you. Pencil and paper ready. If x equals 6 cubed times 15 cubed and y equals 30 cubed, what is the value of the fraction x over y? Emmaus.
27.
27 is correct in your bonus. What word, derived from the Greek for no place, is the setting for novels like Edward Bellamy's Looking Backward and a 1516 Thomas More book?
Utopia.
Utopia is correct. Toss-up. What country, whose namesake desert contains the Arkanu craters, is indented by the Gulf of Sidra and is home to the cities of Benghazi and Tripoli? Emmaus.
Libya.
Libya is correct. And your bonus. In Greek myth, what wife of Amphion bragged to the gods about her 12 or 14 children, prompting Apollo and Artemis to kill them all?
Niobe.
That is correct. Toss-up. What Russian emperor, who created an independent Bulgaria in 1878, was soon murdered in St. Petersburg despite emancipating the serfs in 1861? Emmaus.
Alexander the First.
That is incorrect. Question goes to Notre Dame. The correct response was Alexander II. Just a reminder to our teams, by the way, on toss-up questions, no conferring, but you can do that during your bonus. Toss-up. What poet wrote of the forbidden love between Madeline and Porphyro in The Eve of St. Agnes and addressed an immortal bird in Ode to a Nightingale? Keats. John Keats was the correct response. Toss-up. The folk song Korobeneki is the Type A theme of what Alexei Pajitnov video game in which the player creates lines from falling 4 square pieces? Emmaus.
Tetris.
Tetris is correct. We've went from Keats to Tetris. Very good. Bonus. What substructure within the nucleus, whose namesake organizer regions were first identified in Zea mays, is responsible for ribosome formation?
The nuclear envelope.
That is incorrect. Nucleolus is what we're looking for there. Toss-up. What speech, which describes Mississippi as sweltering with the heat of injustice, was delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. at the March on Washington? Emmaus.
I Have a Dream.
I Have a Dream is correct, and your bonus. At what institution was Mary Ann Vecchio photographed in 1970, shouting over the body of Jeffrey Miller, who had been shot moments earlier? Emmaus.
Berkeley.
That is incorrect. Kent State was the correct response. Our next question is a video question. Your attention to the monitor, please.
In 2006, what lead singer of Aerosmith popped a blood vessel in his vocal cords while singing the high notes in Dream On?
Steven Tyler.
Steven Tyler is correct. And your bonus. What author of the early feminist book Sex and Temperament and Three Primitive Societies described young Pacific Islanders in Coming of Age in Samoa?
Virginia Woolf.
That is incorrect. Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead was the one we were looking for. Toss-up. What function is in the denominator of Taylor series terms, counts the ways to arrange n items in a row, and is symbolized by an exclamation mark? Emmaus.
Factorial.
That is correct. And your bonus. Pencil and paper ready. If an urn has 3 red balls and 3 green balls, and 2 balls are drawn with replacement, what is the probability both are red?
1 out of 36.
That is incorrect. 1/4 or 25%. We needed the reduced form. Okay. Toss up. What naval officer who was victorious at the Battle of Lake Erie, also called Put-in Bay, sent the message, "We have met the enemy and they are ours"? Notre Dame.
Jackson.
That is incorrect. Question goes to Emmaus.
Perry.
Perry is correct. Oliver Hazard Perry. And your bonus. Michel Temer replaced what woman as president of Brazil after her impeachment in August 2016 after accusations of corruption at Petrobras? Dilma Rousseff. Rousseff was the one that we were looking for there. Toss-up. What man, whose titles include Duke of Cornwall, is the eldest son of Queen Elizabeth II and first in the line of succession to the British throne? Notre Dame.
Charles.
Charles is correct, and your bonus. What Percy Bysshe Shelley poem, addressed to a bird, begins, "Hail to thee, blithe spirit"? To a skylark was the correct response to that bonus. Toss-up. What bodies, classified into S-type, M-type, and C-type groups based on their composition, can be found between Mars and Jupiter in a namesake belt? Emmaus.
Asteroids.
Asteroids is correct, and your bonus. Murphy's sign occurs with inflammation of what organ, which may cause cholesterol stones and cholecystitis? Emmaus.
Pancreas.
Gallbladder was the correct response. Toss-up. What city, which is overlooked by Corcovado and Sugarloaf Mountains, contains a statue called Christ the Redeemer and hosted the 2016 Notre Dame?
Rio de Janeiro.
That is correct, and your bonus. The Kentucky and Virginia resolutions opposed what laws which were passed by the Federalist Party and targeted non-citizens and the press?
Bill of Rights.
Incorrect. The Alien and Sedition Acts. Alien and Sedition Acts. Toss-up. What major key, which is used in Mozart's Paris Symphony and the Alleluia Chorus, has a signature with 2 sharps and was used in Pachelbel's canon? Emmaus.
D major.
D major is correct, and your bonus. What French author sought to employ le mot juste, or the correct word, in novels such as Madame Bovary? Emmaus.
Victor Hugo.
Gustave Flaubert was the correct response. Toss-up. Aspergillus and Candida are pathogenic members of what kingdom of eukaryotes and is studied by mycologists and includes yeasts, molds, and mushrooms? Notre Dame.
Fungi.
Fungi is correct, and your bonus. What candidate in the 2016 Republican primary won only Washington, D.C., Minnesota, and Puerto Rico, and dropped out after failing to win Florida?
Rubio.
Rubio is correct. Toss-up. The Welsh monk Asser wrote a biography of what ruler whose victories over the Vikings made him the only king of Anglo-Saxon England known as Great? Emmaus.
Alfred the Great.
Alfred the Great is correct. Your bonus. The Saikan Tunnel under the Tsugaru Strait connects what northernmost of the major Japanese islands to Honshu?
What? Say it again. What? Hokkaido and
Emmaus.
Hokkaido and Okinawa.
Pick one of those, please.
Hokkaido.
That is correct. Toss-up. What city, whose Promenade des Anglais was attacked on July 14, 2016 by Tunisian immigrant Mohamed Lahouj Bahel, is on France's southern coast? Notre Dame.
Nice.
Nice is correct, and your bonus. Each face of a regular dodecahedron is what regular polygon whose internal angles sum to 540 degrees? Notre Dame.
Hexagon.
Pentagon. Pentagon was the correct response. Toss-up. What painter of Tiger Hunt and Hippopotamus Hunt was a Flemish painter whose works such as Venus at the Mirror featured full-figured nudes? Peter Paul Rubens was the correct response.
Lightning round!
At the beginning of our show, we did a coin toss. Notre Dame, you had won the coin toss. Okay, calling tails. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 categories. You'll select one of those categories. The category that is not selected will go to Emmaus after you're done responding. Okay, there are 10 questions and you have 1 minute to respond to them. Anybody can buzz in. No conferring. Your 2 options are books of the Bible and battles.
Books of the Bible.
You didn't have to ring in. That's okay, though.
Right.
Books of the Bible. Very polite. I appreciate that. Books of the Bible. Which book of the Bible says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"?
Deuteronomy.
Incorrect. Is titled for a man who undergoes incredible suffering but keeps his faith.
Job.
Correct. And the last book in the Pentateuch.
Deuteronomy.
That is correct. Contains a verse likening a fool to a dog returning to its vomit.
Micah.
Incorrect. Is the first Pauline epistle and is addressed to churches in Italy.
Two.
Incorrect. Is the last book of the Old Testament.
Skip.
Okay. That brings us to the end of our lightning round. Okay. So that was books of the Bible. That means Emmaus, you get the leftover battles, for better or worse. Battles, 1 minute, same rules apply. In which modern-day country were these battles fought? Hastings.
England.
Correct. Tours. Or Tours.
France.
Correct. Buena Vista.
Spain.
Incorrect. Balaclava.
Ukraine.
Correct. Panipat.
Skip.
Plains of Abraham?
Canada.
Correct. Carabobo.
Skip.
Dien Bien Phu.
Vietnam.
Correct. El Alamein.
Algeria.
Incorrect. Rorke's Drift.
Skip.
Okay, that was all of the questions there. Okay. So we had battles and we had books of the Bible for our lightning round. That's going to bring us right back to our toss-ups. Actually, that's going to bring us to our halftime. The score at halftime is Emmaus 170, Notre Dame 65. Let's have a hand for our teams. So during the break, during each show, we like to take an opportunity to get to know more about our competitors. This week, we're going to find out what person, past or present, each of our contenders on stage would have dinner with and why. We'll start with Notre Dame.
I would like to have dinner with my great-grandpa. I've heard a lot about him, and I would like to get to know him better.
I would like to have dinner with Cameron Sowers because he is a very interesting man.
I would like to have dinner with George Lopez because I like the show and he's really funny.
I would like to have dinner with Ty Lopez because he seems like a pretty cool guy and is a good role model.
Excellent, guys. Thank you so much. And the team from Emmaus.
I would like to have dinner with Barack Obama because he's a big inspiration to me.
I would like to have dinner with Isaac Newton so I can tell him all about Albert Einstein's discovery with relativity.
I'd like to have dinner with Clemens von Metternich to ask him how the concert of Europe went in the grand scheme of things.
I'd like to have dinner with Brent Ohl for his years of tutelage.
Interesting. We had some sycophantic responses, some very touching ones, and some very terribly specific ones. That's fantastic. Thank you, guys. So that's going to bring us right back to our toss-ups. What author who wrote about Louise Mallard's death in The Story of an Hour depicted the suicide of Edna Pontellier in her novel The Awakening? Emmaus.
Kate Chopin.
That is correct, and your bonus. What German language poet of the early 20th century asked, "Who, if I cried out, would hear me among the angelic orders?" in one of the Duino elegies?
Goethe.
Rilke was the one that we were looking for there. Same ka at the end, just a different person. Toss-up. What physical process is measured in units called becquerels, affects unstable nuclei, and produces alpha and beta particles and gamma rays? Emmaus.
Radiation.
Yes, that is correct, and your bonus. Curium, plutonium, and berkelium were all discovered by what chemist, who served as a scientific advisor to 10 U.S. presidents?
Marie Curie.
Incorrect. Seaborg. Seaborg was the correct response there. Toss-up. What city, whose port is on the Kunnik Arm, is a branch of the Cook Inlet, is near the Shugok Mountains, and is the most populous city in Alaska? Notre Dame.
Juneau.
Incorrect. Question goes to Emmaus. Emmaus.
Anchorage.
Anchorage is correct. And the bonus. What French-Canadian prime minister opposed Quebec separatists during the October crisis? Emmaus.
Trudeau.
Which one?
Pierre.
Pierre is correct. Very good. Tried to trick you. Toss-up. What war was paused by the Peace of Nissos after the Battle of Amphipolis and saw the deaths of Cleon and Presidius, generals from Athens and Sparta? Emmaus.
The Peloponnesian War.
Peloponnesian War is correct. And your bonus. Linen is made from the fibers of what plant whose oil can be used as a varnish and whose seeds are used to lower blood cholesterol?
Flax.
Emmaus.
Flax.
Flax is correct. Toss-up. What poet described a region of 10 valleys called Malabulge, where the monster Geron transports Virgil and this narrator of this author's Inferno? Emmaus.
Dante.
Dante, last name?
Alighieri.
That is correct. Bonus. British actor Peter Sellers portrayed the bumbling Inspector Clouseau in a series of films named after what alliteratively named gem? Emmaus. Only the captain can buzz.
Pink Panther.
Pink Panther is correct. Toss-up. What country, led by Juan Manuel Santos, concluded a 2016 peace agreement with Marxist FARC rebels, which was signed in its capital of Bogota? Notre Dame.
Philippines.
Incorrect. Question goes to Emmaus. Emmaus.
Colombia.
Colombia is correct. And your bonus. Which South African Nobel laureate wrote Life and Times of Michael Kay and won the Man Booker Prize twice, most recently for Disgrace? John Maxwell Coetzee was the correct response. Toss-up. Which or what element, which is isolated by electrolysis in the Hall-Héroult process, is commonly extracted from bauxite and used to make most soda cans? Emmaus.
Aluminum.
Aluminum is correct in your bonus. What man who became British Prime Minister in 1770 was blamed for Britain's loss of the 13 colonies?
North.
Emmaus.
North.
North is correct. Lord North. Toss-up. What poet wrote that England hath need of John Milton in the sonnet London 1802 and described the golden daffodils in I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud? Emmaus.
Wordsworth.
Wordsworth is correct. And your bonus. What 8-letter word, which may proceed duce tecum when requiring physical evidence, refers to a document summoning a witness to testify?
Subpoena. Subpoena.
Subpoena is correct.
Lightning round!
In our last lightning round, Notre Dame had started with the selection. This time, Emmaus has their selection first. So same rules apply. The two categories you can choose from: basketball by the numbers or birthplaces.
Birthplaces.
Birthplaces. Very good. For birthplaces, in what U.S. state were these people born? Thomas Jefferson.
Virginia.
Correct. Noah Webster.
Massachusetts.
Incorrect. Mark Twain.
Mississippi.
Incorrect. Abraham Lincoln.
Illinois.
Incorrect. Jack London.
Skip.
John C. Calhoun.
South Carolina.
Correct. Sinclair Lewis.
Skip.
Bill Clinton.
Arkansas.
Correct. Andrew Wyeth.
Skip.
Jeff Sessions.
Alabama.
That is correct. Okay, very well done, folks. So that means, again, for better or worse, basketball by the numbers, gentlemen. So if we've got some fans, this would be beneficial. 1 minute, same rules apply. Give these numbers related to the sport of basketball. Number in the full name of the Philadelphia's NBA team.
76.
Correct. Maximum score of a single shot. Correct. Jersey number worn by Michael Jordan and LeBron James.
23.
23 is correct. Minimum number of each stat for a triple-double.
10.
Correct. Number of teams in the NBA.
30.
Correct. Since 2011, number of teams in the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament.
68.
Correct. Number of feet between a basket and a free throw line in the NBA.
12.
Incorrect. Either of two numbers worn professionally by Kobe Bryant.
8.
Correct. Record number of points scored in a single game in 1962 by Wilt Chamberlain.
100.
Correct. Number of free throws taken after being fouled on a made basket.
1.
Correct. Very well done, guys. Outstanding. Go 76ers. That's going to bring us right back to our toss-ups. What TV series, in which a bomb partially paralyzed entomologist Jack Hodgins starred Emily Deschanel as forensics expert Temperance Brennan?
Bones.
Bones is correct. Good job, Notre Dame. What physical quantity, for your bonus, with dimensions of length per time squared, is the rate at which a velocity is changing?
Meters per second squared.
Incorrect. Acceleration was the correct response. Toss-up. Which country, whose president Zilhur Rahman of the Awami League died in 2013, was led by Mujibur Rahman after its 1971 breakaway from Pakistan? Emmaus.
Bangladesh.
Bangladesh is correct. Your bonus. The Ziolkovsky family's sculpture of Crazy Horse can be found in what state's Black Hills?
South Dakota.
That is correct. Toss-up. What country whose city of Sandre is less than 10 miles from Corfu, is at the eastern end of the Strait of Otranto and has its capital at Tirana? Emmaus.
Iran.
Incorrect. Question goes to Notre Dame.
Iraq.
Incorrect. Albania was the correct response there. Toss-up. Kepler's second law follows from the conservation of what quantity, which has orbital and spin subtypes? Notre Dame. Prompt, more specific.
Relative momentum.
Incorrect. Question goes to Emmaus.
Angular momentum.
Angular momentum is what we're looking for specifically. Your bonus. A childhood memory of stealing pears is described in what autobiographical work by St. Augustine that also describes his conversion to Christianity? Confessions. St. Augustine's Confessions. Toss-up. What act, which was also known as the Bloodhound Law, was part of the Compromise of 1850 and forced the return of escaped African Americans? Emmaus.
Fugitive Slave Act.
That is correct. And your bonus. The city of Burlington, Vermont is on the shores of what lake between New York and Vermont that surrounds Valcour Island? Emmaus.
Lake Champlain.
That is correct. Toss-up. Before 2016, the last Olympic city to hold a golf event was what 1904 U.S. host that lost the NFL's Rams but is still home to baseball's Cardinals? Notre Dame. St. Louis is correct. And your bonus. What politician of the Roman Republic was consul 7 times, allowed those without property to join the army, and fought a civil war with Sulla?
Caesar.
Incorrect. Marius is who we're looking for. Gaius Marius. Interesting name. Toss-up. Vancomycin and penicillin block the cross-linking and the peptoglycan of what tough bacterial structure that gives a cell protection and shape? Notre Dame.
Wall.
So Wall is correct, and your bonus. The Provincetown Players produced many plays, including The Emperor Jones and Desire Under the Elms, by what American author?
Arthur Miller.
Incorrect. Eugene O'Neill was the American playwright that we were looking for. Toss-up. What author, who told of a trip to collect fruit in Blueberries for Sal, wrote of a waterfowl family's trek through Boston in Make Way for Ducklings? Robert McCloskey is the correct response. Toss-up. What opera, whose protagonist imagines a white ship coming in the aria Un bel dì, is about Pinkerton's lover, Chow Chow San, and is by Giacomo Puccini? Notre Dame.
Phantom of the Opera.
Incorrect. Madama Butterfly is what we were looking for there. Congratulations to both of our teams. The final score is Emmaus 370, Notre Dame 170. It's always a pleasure to watch the best and the brightest showcase their immense talents, and we wish Notre Dame the best of luck in their academic endeavors. On behalf of Scholastic Scrimmage and PBS 39, thank you for your continued support and viewership. Though they may be at times teams of rivals, one truth remains: you can't beat brains.
Scholastic Scrimmage is brought to you by the members of PBS 39 and by
Scholastic Scrimmage is sponsored by St. Luke's University Health Network, the region's leading provider of medical education. For more than 100 years, St. Luke's has been dedicated to educating physicians, nurses, and healthcare professionals. To learn more, call St. Luke's InfoLink, toll free at 866 St. Luke's, or visit sluhn.org.
Support for PBS 39's educational programming is provided by the Deluxe Corporation Foundation, proud to support quality programming on PBS 39.
This program is recorded at the PPL Public Media Center at PBS 39 in Bethlehem.